When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the bands which have connected them one with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. On December 2nd, 2017, the day before the first Sunday of Advent, 4 Red Rose rescuers were arrested within just 7 minutes after arrival at the second busiest abortion mill in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Upon arrival, they were specifically told that the police had already been called, and police arrived from 10 minutes away without even sounding a siren. Litigation regarding that arrest continues today in both state and federal courts in challenge of arrests, raising allegations of religious discrimination in the prosecution, and on appeal challenging the repeal of the provision of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that was once recognized in the integration of lunch counters during the civil rights struggle. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Less than 2 weeks after the Democrats secured a majority in the State House, State Senator Dick Saslaw commenced an immediate assault on the Second Amendment. Later joined by his colleagues with legislation ranging from seizure of firearms to closing the gun range as the headquarters of the NRA. It was a year in which leading Democrats elected a known sexual assault offender, permitted a lieutenant governor to slip away despite cries of sexual assault in a hotel room at their national convention, and admissions that both the Attorney General and the sitting governor had donned blackface, but in a climate charged by the March of Impeachment, in which Congressman Don Beyer could boldly appear on Face the Nation to assert that anything is excusable by a Democrat because defeating the president and opposing conservatives was the only thing that mattered. Democracy was at stake. They had no choice. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. In fear of being called a racist, very few stood up to oppose Terry McCullough's decision to permit 2 vehemently opposed groups to meet in confrontation in Charlottesville. And few stood up in the wake of the tragedies that began an assault on public school facilities and anything that made any mention to the Civil War that caused the loss of 2% of the nation's population, pitting brother against brother and friend against friend. Even African Americans, the most emotionally affected to those historical events in the past, permitted a revolutionary Democratic Party to select new names for the facilities that they had determined would not be offensive to the African American community. They would not even permit to participate in the committee choosing the names. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. In the 2016 contested elections, questions about vote tallies in Virginia's 8th congressional district took a back seat to cries to abolish the Electoral College and attempts to delay the certification of the vote totals. In January, a traditional, peaceful transition of power witnessed over 250 arrests, thousands of dollars in destruction of property, and discovery of at least 15 unexploded improvised explosive devices on the grounds of the Capitol that leading Democrat leaders presciently decided to avoid under the pretext of hosting a boycott. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Conspiracy theories of Russian collusion gave rise to the appointment of a special investigator, a 22-month investigation, and a report exceeding 400 pages. But not one criminal charge could be found. Failing that, an alleged whistleblower complaint by a member of the CIA, which is strictly under law prohibited from collection against any American citizen, gave rise to the call for an impeachment inquiry, alleging violations of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which includes a special exemption for government action. Allegations of violations of the bribery provision, which specifically requires the bribing of an American public official. Charges of extortion that would have, under the Hobbs Act, required the president to have threatened kidnapping, grave bodily harm or death to President Zelensky. And finally, supporting a 196-page report that gave only vague references to multiple crimes without any specification, failing constitutional muster. 2 articles of impeachment were drafted, claiming an invented charge of abuse of power, as well as charge of obstruction of justice for the president's legal attempts to fight back. Consequently, impeachment was delivered, and a trial was sought for conviction on a wholly new charge, alleging violation of the Congressional Budgetary and Impoundment Control Act, which contains no criminal penalties, only a civil cause of action in which a president may be mandated to release funds that were withheld without authorization. But there is no genuine issue of fact as to whether or not the funds alleged to have been withheld were eventually released, rendering the issue moot as law. No witnesses required. Such has been the patient sufferance of those colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former system of government. In the background of all of these natural events was Rajan Bazar, a 25-year-old American Iranian who was employed as an accountant, doing what he normally did to relax, take a drive on the George Washington Parkway. But in just over 4 minutes after being rear-ended by an Uber, found to have been following too close for no probable cause to commence a chase, he did not return home to celebrate Thanksgiving with his family. Rather, after being conscientious enough, during a police chase gone mad, to stop at a stop sign to turn on his left-hand turn signal, he was shot dead at close range, with bullets striking 4 times in the left side of his head, and 1 in his right wrist. Fatal wounds from which he survived only 10 days longer. And now we are in a pandemic lockdown that has closed businesses and abruptly altered everything we once knew to be the American way of life. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. My name is Major Mike Webb, and I am running for U.S. Congress with liberty, honor, and excellence. By God, let's make America great again. Honest. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.